I was sitting in the back, so I could see the back of everyone's head. But now that I'm standing in front of you, we have some very good-looking supporters here tonight. I'm going up for research officer, and I thought I'd come and tell you a little something about myself. But I decided against that, and I said I wanted to talk about the party. I wanted to talk about the United National Congress and how I found myself as a member and what actually brought me here. My family comes from agriculture. We came from cane on my father's side. We came from strawberries on my mother's side. And if you think cutting cane is hard, you should spend the summer in Europe with your fingers bitingly cold and picking strawberries like they're roses. Because strawberry fields are like thorny things. You have gloves now, but I mean, it doesn't make anything better. And these are the people that the United National Congress represent. It represents farmers, it represents workers, it represents people who work at minimum wage, who go forward and think. And when you need someone to fight for you, you go to your union. Mr. Basil Pandey founded the Sugar Union, and he represented the people. If you understand the basics of politics, there is the Labour Party, and the opposite of the Labour Party is the Conservative Party. And when you deal with Labour, it's Labour politics. And when you deal with the Conservatives, it's the Conservative politics. The Labour Party of Trinidad and Tobago is the United National Congress. If you need to find out why, you check the background record of Mr. Basil Pandey. He will tell you workers used to be paid in cash. So on a Friday afternoon, they get paid in cash, they go home, they pass on the way home, they pass in the rum shop, they pay the friends, and money would seem to disappear by Sunday. Mr. Pandey had the labor union fight to have them paid by check. So they get paid on Friday, they got their check, and money was still in the bank on Monday. And people remember that. People remember that the system of labor rights in this country was dismal. They used to pick on the workers. There was no minimum wage in this country until Mr. Basil Pandey and this party went into government in 1995 and went and passed legislation. When they passed the legislation of labor rights and they gave them minimum wage, it was increased the next year. It was increased the year after that. Every budget subsequent to that, the minimum wage was increased. And people tend to forget this. Now, what happens is that people enter your party and start to impose conservative politics upon you. We are no longer agriculturists. We are no longer, workers and laborers. We are sophisticated. And we want conservative policy in our Labour Party. And we said no. I think you know who we're talking about, and I think you know where they went. And they left, and they formed their own party. And they brought conservative politics to the forefront. I stayed. Everyone assumed I was leaving and I was going and they looked like me and I fit the demographic and this, that, and the other. But I understand, when you fight for poor people, when you fight for the weakest in society, that is labor politics. That is the policy by which you must live your life. I do not believe in conservative politics. Now, what systematically happens from that point is that you have conservative elements within your party, and the Conservative Party, which the opposite of the UNC is the PNM. So the PNM is by default your conservative party. You'll find if you look at some of their policies, it's conservative politics. Somebody came to me and asked me, we're campaigning with a slogan, take back the UNC. And she asked me, what are we taking it back from? We're taking it back from Kamala, right? And I had to sit down there and I had to explain to this person, very educated, degree, that this is a Labour Party. But this government is running on conservative politics. The campaign of the PP is conservative politics. There are no Labour policies being implemented. Who is making the most noise and who has stepped forward now and said, we don't like what's going on and we're going to give you an ultimatum? It's the party partnership called the NSJ. And if you look into them, they're all unions, they're all labor, they're all union workers, and they want labor policy. They have gotten involved in a partnership, and they have to. Raod must support conservative politics and conservative policy and conservative legislation. And he's sitting there and he's realizing labor rights, labor politics is not being addressed. I'm afraid Mr. Panay will tell you that the government and the party are together and he wants to separate the two. I don't think that's completely true. I think that we have a conservative government, a conservative executive in a Labour Party. If you ask the people what they're most upset about, is they're not being represented. And the people who are not being represented are the weakest. They are the weakest individuals. And the conservative individuals seem to be able to take care of themselves, and they continue to support the People's Partnership. But the elements that's coming forward are the people who are working at minimum wage, working in the fields, gardeners, laborers, and they're saying, they don't understand it. They're saying it, but they don't know why. They said, we have gotten exchange. We haven't gotten change. We have left a conservative PNM government and have entered a conservative PP government. So the change never took place. The change is, you go from a conservative PNM to a Labour-based UNC. And if you can't go to that, you found yourself in a conservative PP. And that is why people are saying we have no change. And that's the change I expected. I understood that the individual who now leads the government was in this party, she was in the previous government, and she would understand what Labour is and that the UNC is a Labour party. For her to take leadership, enter the government, and execute conservative policy has left what we refer to as the grassroots or the rank and file unhappy. We don't know why we're unhappy. We don't talk about the policy. We don't understand, but they know this is not what happened last time, and it's not supposed to happen. It hasn't happened again. So we want to know what's going on. I can get into the details of policy and labor and conservatism and that, but I won't stretch it out much further than that. To understand that the change has not occurred because she has entered into a conservative policy agenda, and I expect that agenda to go on for the next 40 months. Now, in order to change that, the executive of the UNC must be changed. And I believe that the generation next slate understands labor policy. These individuals know what the rank and file and what labor rights is, and what Mr. Pandey did and what Mr. Pandey didn't do. And they will talk to the government and express to them that conservative policy is not right. The workers, the people on the ground, are who built this party and who will take back this party, and we will tell the cabinet, this is not right, we want to go into labor and labor policy. Budget was read immediately after government in August. There was no minimum wage address. The workers made noise, I made noise, I called people, we had an increase in minimum wage. Last year's budget came again, there was no increase. I'm waiting for this August. I'm waiting to hear what they have to say about minimum wage this year. I haven't seen the ultimatums brought forward by the MSJ, but I expect them to be basically labor rights policy that should be brought forward. And we're going to see if that happens or not. I don't think it'll happen unless the UNC goes back to its roots, goes back to labor policy, goes back to taking care of the rank and file. That is why I got involved. That is why I got involved with Generation Next. That's why I signed my nomination form and put my name in. Because I understand what's happened. I see a conservative government and I know I'm a member of a Labour Party. And I can't get it to work. And I call, and I email, and I make noise, and I'm that person. Is Nigel trying to bring down the government? And I'm there going, well, if you all listen, if you all understand, if you all can see past the, what's the word we're using? The sycophant behavior, the cult of personality, the camera. I mean, if you can see past that, and if you can understand that the poor fella on the road don't know what's going on, everything seems to be going the same way, then you start to understand. But they're all driving Prado. I see somebody in the parliament, I won't call names, needs a new suit. He ties it up here, and you can see me fat on the air. And chubby. You living good. But the poor man like me, burning new holes in my belt. And new holes in my belt, not getting tighter. We have to tighten up. But that's not going to continue for much. When Generation Next, and you put your X next to the sun, and we take the executive, we will bring forth labor policy for the rank and file, for the working man, and we're going to hear what this PP government has to say. March 24th is a Saturday. I'll be looking out for every one of you here at the polling station. Thank you.